Hello, welcome to the Learn English Lab. We're diving deep today into a topic that feels incredibly relevant for navigating the world we live in right now.
Yeah.
How to build resilience. We're going to unpack some really insightful material focused on this crucial capacity, not just surviving challenges, but adapting, recovering, and actually, growing stronger because of them.
Yeah, that growth piece is so important.
Our mission today is to really pull out the most useful insights, giving you a clear picture of what resilience truly is, maybe some of the science behind it, and definitely some practical strategies you can start using across different parts of your life.
That's right. I mean, the world does feel incredibly unpredictable sometimes, doesn't it? Full of rapid changes, unexpected challenges.
Definitely.
You've got economic shifts, technology moving so fast, global health things. It all adds up. And resilience, it's not just like a nice-to-have trait anymore. It really feels fundamental to navigating these pressures well. The insights we're looking at today really highlight resilience as a cornerstone of thriving, not just, getting by. And it touches on everything, the physical, mental, emotional, social sides, giving a pretty comprehensive look at how you can strengthen this capacity.
Okay, let's really unpack this concept first then, because we often hear resilience talked about simply as bouncing back. But the material we're drawing from suggests it's more active than that, right? More dynamic than just getting back to normal.
Yes, absolutely. It goes significantly beyond just simple recovery. It's about the active ability to adapt when you're faced with adversity. It's about keeping your equilibrium, is staying somewhat balanced even when you're under real stress.
Okay.
And this is key. It's about emerging stronger. That enhanced strength comes from really engaging with the challenge in a growth-oriented way.
So it doesn't mean you don't feel pain or pretend things are fine.
No, not at all. Quite the opposite, actually.
Yeah.
It's about facing challenges head-on, learning from that experience, and then integrating those lessons so you become, a more robust, more capable version of yourself afterwards.
The material uses a really big analogy for this. The bamboo metaphor.
The bamboo. It's a very fitting image, I think, because it captures that dynamic nature perfectly.
Yeah.
Think about a bamboo stalk in a big storm.
Right.
It doesn't just stand there rigidly, risking snapping. No, it bends. It bends deeply, adapting to the pressure, the wind. And then when the storm passes, it springs back upright. But often it's a little more flexible than before, maybe a bit more rooted, stronger for having gone through it. Resilient people kind of function like that. They bend, they adjust, and they learn and grow through the challenge. They don't just snap back to how they were.
And we see this play out in real life examples too. The material mentioned a single parent who suddenly loses their job.
Yeah, that's a great example. That's a huge blow, right?
Yeah.
A situation that could easily lead to feeling defeated, maybe permanently.
For sure.
But instead of being completely overcome, this person uses that really difficult situation as a kind of catalyst. Maybe they decide to retrain, pivot into a totally new career they hadn't thought of.
Okay.
And ultimately, perhaps they even build a more fulfilling life, professionally and personally, than they had before the job loss.
That sounds like post-traumatic growth. Is that the idea?
That's exactly it. It's not just about surviving something tough like a trauma or a major setback. It's about experiencing real positive transformation because of it. It shows that potential for growth that lies within resilience, especially when we face adversity with that kind of growth mindset.
It's fascinating, too, how resilience seems to apply across such a huge range of challenges. I mean, from tiny daily hassles right up to major life crises.
It certainly does. The material really emphasizes that resilience exists on this broad continuum. At one end, you use it for everyday stuff, managing a sudden project deadline at work that feels impossible, or maybe navigating a tricky conversation with someone without losing your cool.
Right, the small stuff adds up.
Totally. And then at the other end, you have the really profound, life-altering challenges. Coping with a chronic illness, dealing with immense grief, adapting to huge societal changes, the core skills you build up, adaptability, self-awareness, resourcefulness, emotional regulation. These are useful everywhere. They make resilience this incredibly valuable toolkit for pretty much anything life throws your way.
So it's clearly not just about having a positive attitude or being tough. There's actual science behind this. The material explores how resilience is really rooted in this complex interplay between our biology, our psychology, and our environment.
Yes, it's a very dynamic mix of those factors.
Yeah.
From a neuroscience perspective, a really crucial piece is the brain's neuroplasticity.
Right. the brain changing itself.
Exactly. Its amazing ability to reorganize, form new connections between neurons, literally change its structure and function based on our experiences, including the challenging ones. And the prefrontal cortex, that part at the very front of your brain, that plays a huge role.
That's for decision-making and stuff.
Decision-making, regulating your emotions effectively, planning for the future. All these executive functions that are absolutely essential for navigating difficult situations, well, adaptively.
And there's research on this. I think the material mentioned Richard Davidson.
Yeah, Davidson's work is really compelling. It shows how certain practices, things like mindfulness meditation, can actively strengthen activity in that prefrontal cortex.
Wow.
And that, in turn, can significantly improve your ability to manage your emotions and boost your stress resilience. It really shows that we can influence the biological side of resilience through things we choose to do.
Then there's the body's stress response system, the HPA axis.
That's the one, hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis. Think of it as the body's main command center for stress. When something stressful happens, this system kicks in, releasing hormones like adrenaline and cortisol.
Which is useful sometimes, right? Fight or flight.
Essential for survival in short bursts. But the issue, as the material points out, is chronic stress. Long-term stress keeps this system overactivated, leading to way too much cortisol floating around.
And that's bad.
Over time, yeah. High cortisol can mess with cognitive function, harder to think clearly, remember things, make good choices, and it can even weaken your immune system. What's really interesting is that people who show more resilience tend to have a more balanced HPA response. They still react to stress, but they recover faster, avoiding that damaging chronic activation state.
And is there evidence for that physiological difference?
Absolutely. The material points to a study, I think it was in the Journal of Psychosomatic Research around 2020. It indicated that doing resilience training, actively practicing these skills, can actually lead to measurable drops in cortisol levels and help the body bounce back from stress more efficiently. So again, it's not just in your head. There are real physical changes happening.
Okay, so biology is one piece, but psychology obviously plays a massive role too.
Oh, huge. The material identifies several key psychological factors. One big one is self-efficacy.
That's believing you can do things.
Basically, yeah. Your belief in your own capability to succeed in specific situations or handle tasks. Albert Bandura's work on this is really influential. It shows pretty convincingly that when people believe they can actually influence outcomes through their efforts, they're much more likely to keep going when things get tough, when they face obstacles or fail.
Makes sense. If you don't think you can handle it, why try?
Exactly. You're less likely to even attempt it, or you'll give up much faster.
Optimism comes up a lot too in the material.
It does. Martin Seligman's research on learned optimism is really relevant here. Now, it's important to clarify, this isn't about being naive or thinking everything's always rosy.
Right, not just wishful thinking.
No. It's about cultivating a positive, but still realistic outlook. This kind of balanced optimism acts like a buffer against despair. When something bad happens, instead of seeing it as this permanent, overwhelming personal failure, someone with this outlook is more likely to view it as temporary, specific to the situation, or not reflective of their fundamental worth. The material also mentions locus of control.
Internal versus external.
Right. Do you generally believe you have control over your life events, internal, or that external forces are mostly in charge, external? An internal locus of control usually links to greater resilience because it gives you that sense of agency, that feeling you can actually do something to influence things.
So we've got biology, psychology, environment. And what about genetics? Is resilience something you're just born with?
Well, the material does acknowledge that genetics seem to play some role. It mentions twin studies, I think published in Behavior Genetics in 2018, suggesting that maybe somewhere between 30 to 50% of the differences we see in people's resilience might be linked to inherited factors, possibly related to genes influencing serotonin or dopamine levels.
And this feels like but it's not set in stone.
Absolutely not. And this is a really crucial point. The material hammers home. Genetics might give you a certain starting point, maybe a propensity, but your environment and the behaviors you learn are considered just as critical, maybe even more so.
So things like your upbringing, support systems.
Exactly. Your upbringing, the strength of your social support, the coping strategies you learn and practice, these things can significantly shape your resilience, often overriding or balancing out any genetic predisposition. And that's really empowering, because it means resilience isn't some fixed trait you either have or don't. It's something anyone can develop, nurture, and strengthen.
Which really brings us to why this matters so much right now in our modern world.
We touched on it, but the 21st century really does throw a unique set of pressures at us. We're dealing with significant economic uncertainty, the undeniable impacts of climate change, incredibly fast technological disruption changing everything, and of course, global health crises, like the recent pandemic.
The pandemic really was a massive real-time test of resilience, wasn't it?
Oh, absolutely. On every level, individuals grappling with isolation, health fears, job insecurity, families juggling work, kids at home, online school, whole communities and nations having to adapt incredibly quickly. People faced lockdowns, job losses, huge uncertainty. And the material highlights a study, I think it was in The Lancet in 2021, that found people who reported higher resilience levels before the pandemic actually experienced lower rates of anxiety and depression during it.
Wow, so it acted like a protective shield almost.
In a way, yes. It really underscores that protective role resilience plays for mental well-being, especially during those widespread, long-lasting crises.
And it's not just about getting through hard times, is it? Resilience seems linked to success and just general fulfillment, too.
It absolutely is. Think about the workplace. Resilient employees are gold. They adapt better to change, handle pressure without crumbling, bounce back faster from setbacks or tough feedback. That makes them more effective, more innovative, often more successful.
Okay.
And in your personal life, resilience helps build stronger relationships because you've got more emotional capacity to handle disagreements, support others, navigate challenges together. It's strongly linked to better mental and physical health overall, and it really contributes to feeling like your life has purpose and direction.
It even goes beyond the individual, right to groups.
Yeah, the material talks about community resilience, that collective ability of a neighborhood, a city, whatever group, to recover and adapt after shared disasters. Think about New Orleans after Hurricane Katrina.
Right.
Recovery wasn't just individuals pulling themselves up. It was community initiatives, people helping each other, collective support structures that were vital in that incredibly long, complex rebuilding process.
And in today's world, with constant information overload, social media, polarization,
resilience gives you essential tools for that landscape too. It helps you filter the noise, figure out what's reliable information, stay focused on what actually matters to you, and stay grounded when things feel chaotic or overwhelming. So ultimately, building resilience isn't just about survival. It empowers you to live more meaningfully, contribute positively, maybe even inspire others by showing how you navigate challenges.
it seems like this isn't a brand new idea either. Different cultures, different times in history, they've all thought about this in their own ways.
That's a great point. The material points out that while resilience is this universal human thing adapting, enduring how it's understood and expressed varies a lot. You find threads of it woven into ancient philosophies, traditions.
Like the Stoics.
Exactly. Ancient Stoics like Marcus Aurelius or Epictetus, they really emphasize inner resilience through self-discipline, examining your thoughts, and crucially, accepting what you genuinely can't control. Their whole philosophy was about finding strength by focusing intensely on your own judgments, reactions, intentions, your inner world, rather than getting thrown off by external events.
And indigenous cultures often have a different focus, maybe more on connection.
They often do. The material mentions perspectives from indigenous cultures, like the Navajo. Their view of resilience is frequently tied to harmony with nature, with the community. It's less about just individual triumph and more about interconnectedness, drawing strength from shared knowledge, community bonds, connection to the land.
Eastern traditions also seem to focus inward a lot.
Yes, practices like Buddhist mindfulness offer powerful ways to cultivate inner resilience. A lot of it comes down to understanding and accepting impermanence, the idea that everything changes, including difficult times, painful feelings. Accepting that can really lessen suffering and build this inner flexibility, this calmness that's core to resilience.
It feels like there's sometimes a contrast between maybe a modern Western focus on the individual versus more collectivist views.
There definitely can be. Modern Western thinking often puts a lot of emphasis on individual agency, the power of one person to overcome through willpower.
Yeah.
Whereas many collectivist cultures, like in parts of East Asia, tend to prioritize communal resilience. The material uses Japan's response to the 2011 earthquake and tsunami as an example. Of course, individual suffering was immense, but the recovery effort was deeply collective community, supporting each other, relying on social structures, working together. Understanding these different views really enriches our own approach. It shows resilience isn't just one thing, it's personal and collective, inward and outward.
Speaking of incredibly powerful personal stories, the material highlights Viktor Frankl.
Frankl. His story is just Incredibly moving. A truly powerful example of resilience in the face of unimaginable horror. As a Holocaust survivor, a psychiatrist who lived through the Nazi concentration camps, his book, Man's Search for Meaning, is this profound testament to the human spirit's ability to find purpose even in the absolute worst conditions.
How did he manage that when everything external was just gone?
Frankl observed that even when prisoners were stripped of everything, family, freedom, dignity, everything, they still had one fundamental freedom left. The inner freedom to choose their attitude towards their circumstances.
Wow.
He found that the people most likely to survive, physically and mentally, were those who could find or create some sense of purpose. Maybe he was holding on to hope of seeing a loved one again, or finishing some work, or in his case, imagining teaching others the lessons from the camps later on.
So finding meaning in the suffering itself.
Exactly. That ability to find meaning, to hold on to a vision for the future despite the horrific present, that's what sustained him and others. His story just powerfully shows that resilience isn't solely about having good circumstances. It can be deeply rooted in your mindset, your values, your sense of purpose.
Okay, so moving from those big concepts and examples, the material then kind of breaks resilience down into building blocks, pillars.
Yes, it presents resilience as being built on 4 key pillars: physical, mental, emotional, and social. And the really crucial insight is that these pillars aren't separate silos. They're deeply interconnected. They reinforce each other.
How so?
Well, think about it. If you improve your sleep quality that's physical, it doesn't just help your body recover. It also boosts your mental clarity, improves your emotional regulation, gives you more energy to connect socially.
Right.
Conversely, if you neglect one, say your social connections feel weak, that can drain your emotional energy and even impact your motivation to take care of yourself physically. They all work together.
And the material goes into quite a bit of detail on these, starting with the physical foundation.
It really establishes physical resilience as the bedrock, the fundamental energy source, the capacity that lets your body handle stress, recover from illness, and just maintain the energy you need for life's demands. And it provides a ton of actionable strategies rooted in science across nutrition, exercise, sleep, and stress management.
Let's really dig into nutrition first. How does what we eat actually fuel resilience?
Nutrition is absolutely critical. It affects how well your body handles stress, how strong your immune system is, how consistent your energy levels are. It impacts brain function, hormones, immune health, even your ability to regulate emotions. You could argue it's the most fundamental piece of physical resilience.
Is there specific science linking diet and resilience?
Oh, yes. The material talks about the gut-brain axis, this fascinating two-way communication system between your gut microbiome, all those bacteria in your digestive tract, and your brain. Research, like a study mentioned from Nature Microbiology in 2019, suggests that a diverse, healthy gut microbiome, which you get from eating varied, fiber-rich whole foods, can actually help reduce stress-related inflammation in the body and brain, and that directly supports resilience.
So, are there specific nutrients we should focus on?
The material flags several key ones. Omega-3 fatty acids, think salmon, walnuts, flax seeds, are vital for reducing inflammation and supporting brain function, keeping you sharp. B vitamins from whole grains, eggs, leafy greens are crucial for energy and mood regulation. Magnesium found in nuts, seeds, spinach helps calm the nervous system, managing that stress response. And antioxidants from berries, dark chocolate, kale help fight oxidative stress caused by chronic stress, protecting your cells.
So what does a resilient diet look like day to day?
The main idea is prioritizing whole foods. Fruits, vegetables, lean proteins, whole grains, healthy fats. That's your foundation. The material specifically mentions the Mediterranean diet pattern, noting research links it to lower stress and better mental health. Think olive oil, fish, lots of produce, nuts, seeds. You also want a good balance of macronutrients. Carbs, fats, protein adjusted for your activity level. Staying hydrated is huge too. Even mild dehydration can zap energy and worsen stress. Aim for 2-3 liters of water daily, maybe more if you're active.
And limit the bad stuff.
Definitely. Limit inflammatory foods, processed stuff, refined sugars, trans fats, as they can actively work against your body's ability to handle stress. And planning ahead, like meal prepping, is suggested as a key strategy to stay consistent, even when life gets hectic.
The material even gave a sample day, didn't it?
It did, yeah. Just as an illustration, like maybe Greek yogurt with berries and nuts for breakfast, an apple with almond butter for a snack. Lunch could be grilled salmon with quinoa and roasted veggies. Afternoon snack, maybe hummus and veggie sticks. Dinner, perhaps a chicken stir fry with brown rice and lots of greens. And maybe some herbal tea and dark chocolate in the evening. It's just a template showing how to weave those nutrient-dense foods in throughout the day.
What about different cultures or access issues? Not everyone can eat salmon and berries easily.
That's a really important point the material addresses. It acknowledges that diets vary hugely. The core principles, whole foods, nutrient density can be adapted anywhere. If fresh produce is tricky, affordable staples like lentils, beans, rice, root vegetables can be the base. Plant-based cultures need to ensure good protein sources like tofu or legumes, and it wisely advises consulting a dietitian for personalized advice, especially with health conditions.
And there was a case study, Maria the nurse.
Right, Maria, battling fatigue and stress from long shifts. She shifted towards that Mediterranean style, focused on whole foods, started meal prepping. The result? Sustained energy, better mood, fewer stress symptoms like headaches. It's a great practical example of how consistent dietary changes boost your capacity, your resilience. The material suggests an exercise too. Create your own nutrition plan. Assess your habits, pick areas to improve, plan meals, track how you feel. Makes it tangible.
Okay, shifting to the next physical pillar, exercise. How is movement medicine for resilience?
Exercise is incredibly powerful, not just physically, but mentally and emotionally too. Regular activity strengthens your heart, muscles, metabolism, makes your body better at handling physical stress. But it also boosts mood, cuts stress hormones, releases endorphins, those natural feel-good chemicals. Plus, it enhances cognitive function, focus, memory, problem solving, all vital when you're facing challenges.
And what's the science behind that link?
Well, exercise helps regulate that HPA axis, lowering cortisol levels over time. It also boosts BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor, kind of like brain fertilizer. BDNF supports brain cell health and neuroplasticity, the brain's adaptability.
Right.
A study mentioned from Frontiers in Psychology in 2021 specifically linked regular aerobic exercise to better emotional regulation and less anxiety, boosting resilience, and strength training. It builds physical competence and confidence, which directly feeds into that self-efficacy we talked about, believing you can handle things.
What kinds of exercise are best?
The material suggests a mix. Aerobic exercise, walking, running, swimming, cycling for heart health and mood, maybe 30 minutes most days. Strength training weights, body weight exercises 2-3 times a week for muscle and confidence. Flexibility and mobility yoga, stretching daily or several times a week, helps reduce tension and aids recovery. And functional fitness movements mimicking daily life, like carrying groceries, builds practical resilience.
How do you realistically start an exercise routine, especially if you're not active now?
Start small is the key advice. Just 10-15 minutes daily, a brisk walk, some stretching is a great beginning. Mix it up cardio, strength, flexibility to avoid boredom and injury. Make it social if that helps join a class. Walk with a friend adds motivation and connection. And tracking your progress, even just noticing how you feel, keeps you motivated.
What about accessibility? Gyms cost money, people are busy.
Totally valid. The material stresses inclusivity. For mobility issues, there's chair yoga, water aerobics. For low income, free online workouts, parks. For busy people, integrate movement. Take stairs, walking meetings, quick exercises during breaks, active chores. Consistency matters more than fancy workouts.
And the case study here was James, the office worker.
Yeah, James. Sedentary job, feeling stressed, gained weight. Started super simple. 15-minute walks at lunch. Felt better, got motivated, added running, then yoga. After 6 months. Lost weight, more energy, handled work stress much better. Shows how starting small and building consistently works. The material suggests a design your movement plan exercise. Assess, choose one new thing, schedule it, reflect on the impact on your resilience.
Okay, pillar number 3 for physical resilience, sleep.
Sleep, often called the cornerstone of recovery, and absolutely non-negotiable for resilience. The material is really clear. Chronic poor sleep doesn't just make you tired, it seriously impairs critical functions. Decision-making suffers. Emotional regulation gets harder.
Yeah.
You're more irritable. Your immune system weakens. Your body can't repair properly.
What's the science connecting sleep and resilience?
Sleep is fundamental for regulating your autonomic nervous system, balancing that fight or flight response with the rest and digest state, allowing recovery from stress. A study mentioned from Sleep Medicine Reviews in 2020 found getting 7-9 hours of quality sleep consistently boosts stress resilience and cognitive performance. And REM sleep specifically seems vital for processing emotional experiences, reducing the sting of stressful events over time.
So how can we actually optimize our sleep?
Several key strategies. Consistency is king. Same bedtime, same wake-up time, even on weekends, to regulate your internal clock. Create a sleep sanctuary. Dark, quiet, cool bedroom, around 60-67 degrees Fahrenheit cup. Blackout curtains, earplugs can help. Limit screens before bed. That blue light messes with melatonin, your sleep hormone. Aim for 1-2 screen-free hours before sleep.
A wind-down routine.
Yes,
Yeah,
definitely. Relaxing activities like reading a real book, meditating, a warm bath signals it's time to rest. And avoid stimulants like caffeine and alcohol later in the day.
What about common sleep problems like insomnia?
The material touches on this. For chronic insomnia, CBTI, cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia, is highlighted as very effective. Stress keeping you awake. Journaling worries before bed can help offload them. Shift workers might use light therapy or strategic naps.
Do sleep needs vary a lot?
They do. 7-9 hours is a guideline for adults, but kids need more. Parents might need naps. Some cultures have siestas. Older adults might have different patterns. The key is finding what amount and pattern leaves you feeling rested and functioning well.
And the sleep case study was Aisha, the teacher.
Right. Aisha, struggling with stress-induced insomnia affecting her job. She implemented a strict nighttime routine, no screens light, meditation, consistent bedtime within a month. Big improvements in falling asleep, staying asleep, feeling rested, boosted her focus and resilience at school, shows the power of consistent habits. There's a sleep hygiene audit exercise too. Track habits, identify disruptors, pick one change, monitor the impact on sleep and resilience.
Okay, the final physical pillar, stress management.
Right, so short bursts of stress can be useful, get you energized,
Yeah.
but chronic, ongoing stress, that seriously undermines resilience. The material stresses that learning and using targeted stress management techniques is crucial for restoring balance, physiologically and psychologically.
How does chronic stress hurt us physically?
It keeps that sympathetic nervous system, fight or flight, constantly activated. High cortisol, elevated heart rate, blood pressure, suppressed immunity, digestive issues, mental fog. It just depletes your resources, making you less able to cope with anything else. A study mentioned from psychoneuroendocrinology in 2019 showed techniques like deep breathing actually reduce cortisol and boost resilience.
What are some of the key techniques mentioned?
Several effective ones. Deep breathing is fundamental, directly calms the nervous system. The 4-7-8 method is a simple example. Progressive muscle relaxation, PMR, tensing and releasing muscles, reduces physical tension. Spending time in nature, even short walks, lowers cortisol and boosts mood. Creative outlets, painting, music, gardening offer emotional expression and induce flow states, reducing stress. Biofeedback can teach conscious control over stress responses.
How do you fit these into a busy life?
Consistency over duration. Even 10 minutes daily helps. Use micro breaks. 1-2 minutes of deep breathing before a meeting. Personalize it. Journaling if you're introspective. Running if you're active. Combine techniques with other pillars, deep breathing in your bedtime routine, mindfulness during exercise.
And Liam, the manager facing burnout.
Yeah, Liam. Difficulty concentrating, irritable, poor sleep from work stress. Started taking 10-minute park walks at lunch, focusing on deep breathing. After 3 months, noticeably less stressed, better decision-making, better sleep. Boosted his resilience significantly. Again, shows simple, consistent practice works. The material includes a stress management toolkit exercise. Identify stressors, pick techniques, practice, see what works best for you.
The material also mentioned other examples showing how these physical pillars work together.
Right. Like Sarah, the injured marathon runner, combining nutrition, modified exercise, and optimized sleep for recovery. Or Tom, managing type 2 diabetes with diet, walking, and stress reduction. And Priya, the single mom, integrating quick workouts, meal prep, and naps. It shows resilience often comes from combining strategies for a bigger effect. There's even a prompt to reflect on how improving just one physical aspect could transform your life. Really makes you think about the impact.
So that physical foundation is clearly crucial, providing the energy. But resilience is more than just physical, right? The material emphasizes mental, emotional, and social strengths too.
Absolutely. Physical health is the bedrock, but you need the other pieces too. The material explores these, maybe with slightly less deep dive science than the physical, but with really strong concepts and practical exercises.
Okay, let's look at mental resilience. What's a key idea there?
A huge one is the growth mindset, drawing on Carol Dweck's research. It's the belief that your abilities aren't fixed, that you can develop them through dedication and hard work. Instead of seeing challenges or failures as proof you're not good enough, you see them as chances to learn and grow.
How do you actually cultivate that mindset?
The material suggests practical things, like consciously reframing failures. Not I failed, but this didn't work yet, what can I learn? Actively seeking challenges just outside your comfort zone. Celebrating effort and learning, not just perfection, and learning from role models who overcame obstacles like J.K. Rowling getting rejected. Priya's academic comeback story in the material illustrates this beautifully. There's a growth mindset journal exercise suggested too.
What other mental resilience topics come up?
Things like using structured problem-solving frameworks, design thinking, SWOT analysis to tackle challenges systematically, developing cognitive flexibility, being able to switch perspectives, adapt maybe through scenario planning or brain games, and mindfulness and meditation again for focus and non-judgmental awareness.
Moving to emotional resilience, what's the core focus?
This is about understanding, managing, and responding effectively to your feelings, especially tough ones. A key strategy highlighted is self-compassion, based on Kristen Neff's work. Basically, treating yourself with the kindness you'd offer a suffering friend instead of harsh self-criticism.
What does self-compassion involve?
Neff outlines 3 parts. Self-kindness, being warm and understanding toward yourself when you fail or hurt. Common humanity, recognizing that struggle is part of being human, you're not alone. And mindfulness, observing painful thoughts, feelings without getting totally swept away by them. Elena's story in the material, using affirmations and journaling after rejection, shows this in action. There's a self-compassion letter exercise too.
What else falls under emotional resilience?
Developing emotional awareness, knowing what you're feeling and why, like in Goleman's emotional intelligence work. Reframing unhelpful thoughts using techniques from CBT, like spotting cognitive distortions, catastrophizing, etc. And finding meaning, drawing on Frankl's ideas, practicing gratitude, connecting with values or rituals that give life significance beyond just your own struggles.
And the final pillar, social resilience. Why are connections so vital?
Because resilience is absolutely not just an individual thing. Strong relationships and community support are crucial buffers against stress. They provide practical help, emotional comfort, different perspectives when you're struggling.
What areas does the material cover here?
Several key things. Building strong relationships, understanding attachment, building trust, resolving conflict healthily, identifying and using your support systems, mapping your network, knowing who to turn to, accessing help, even online communities. Developing effective communication skills like nonviolent communication, active listening to build understanding, and contributing to your community, volunteering, advocating, participating, which builds social bonds and your own sense of belonging and purpose. The material indicates there are case studies and exercises for these social skills too.
It sounds like the material offers a lot of concrete ways to actually do this stuff.
It really does. Beyond the pillars, there's a section on practical tools and habits. Things like different types of journaling, structured goal setting, using SMART goals or vision boards, effective time management techniques like the Eisenhower matrix or Pomodoro to reduce overwhelm, setting healthy boundaries, saying no, managing energy, and committing to lifelong learning to stay adaptable.
And it acknowledges that this isn't always easy.
Definitely. It addresses common roadblocks like self-doubt, feeling overwhelmed, fear of failure, dealing with uncertainty, and offers ways to navigate those.
And it looks at resilience in specific situations.
Yes, applying it to the workplace, relationships, big life transitions like moving or retirement, and coping with crises or trauma specifically.
So it really frames resilience not as a fixed state, but as this ongoing journey.
Precisely. It's about forming habits, adapting as life changes, reflecting on progress, and committing to continuous growth. Not a destination, but a process.
Okay, this has been a really thorough deep dive into building resilience, drawing from all this great material. We've covered so much ground, from what it is, the science, different perspectives, the pillars, practical tools.
Yeah, it's clear resilience is this complex, multifaceted journey involving physical health, mental clarity, emotional balance, social connection, all working together. The insights really offer a comprehensive toolkit, grounded in solid ideas, full of examples and exercises to help you not just cope, but truly thrive when things get tough.
A key takeaway for me is that you don't have to do everything at once. It often starts with small steps.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Consistency with those small steps is often more powerful than huge, sporadic efforts. Just keep practicing.
And that reframing of challenges, seeing them not just as bad things, but as real opportunities to learn, adapt, and get stronger, that feels really important.
It really is. Viewing challenges as opportunities for growth is central to the whole concept.
So as you reflect on our deep dive today, maybe consider this question. What is one small, tangible step you could take this week? Just one thing to intentionally strengthen one of these resilience pillars in your own life. And maybe think about how taking that single step might ripple outwards, creating larger positive change.
That's a great thought to leave with, one small step.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into building resilience. If you found this insightful and valuable, please do like, share, and subscribe to this YouTube channel. We appreciate your support.